So let me ask you something. You have a recipe, right? And you read the directions and you follow them exactly every single time you make that dish. So the oven is at the right temperature each time. The heat in the pan is the exact temperature. The way that you prepare the vegetables or how you dice the meat or whatever it is, it's always the same. And you follow the recipe to the word. What happens? You get the same dish over and over, right? Consistency. And in restaurants, it's a wonderful thing. That's your goal as a chef, to have food come out the same way all the time. I remember the executive chef of this hotel I worked at, and he said, our goal is to be like McDonald's in some ways. Now, at first you think that's horrifying. Why would you want to be like McDonald's? I knew what he was getting at, because it was about consistency, rock solid. No matter what time of day you come in, no matter who you are, doesn't matter. When you order the chowder, it tastes exactly the same all the time. That doesn't always happen, especially in smaller places. Sometimes the cooks get a little too creative or they go off base and it's not the same. Now, what if you applied that to your life? Right? Imagine you do the same thing every single day. You do the same, you take the same actions, you have the same thoughts, you have the same. What happens? You have the same results in your life. And unlike a restaurant, that's probably not what you want. There is something to be said about certain things in our lives that we want to be consistent. But do you want to go onto your deathbed? Do you want to say that, I'm so happy that I had the exact routine for 40 years. Oh boy, that was exhilarating. No, you wouldn't. And there's some of us out there, and you have to excuse me, I have a cold. So I'm going to make this a quick one today. But there's many of us, and I'm raising my hand here. You can't see me. I'm not doing the videos anymore. Where there's a lot of areas in my life where I'm doing the same thing. And guess what? I'm getting the same results, but it's not satisfying. It's not enough. And if you are one of those, then stick around, because I want you to hear the things that I'm planning on doing. This is one of those episodes where I'm like, when I do these episodes, I have to admit, when I pick these topics or whatever comes to mind, it's usually because I need to hear this in some way. So this is very much about me getting this message as it is for you. I hope that in these episodes you get something from it. I know I do when I'm recording these and listening back. The message that I want to share with you is the one that I need to receive as well. And that is, it's time to change the recipes up. If you are cooking something, imagine you change the cooking method. You change up the fish. You use a different type of, use different aromatics, use different spices. You will have a different dish. You will have a different experience when you eat. And in the same way, we can change how we show up on the day to day, the week to week, month to month, etc., and create a new experience for ourselves because we're changing it up. And of course, for someone like me, the fear, and this is the common fear, is as much as we crave the change, we fear the change. Because what is that going to look like? How will I feel? Will I look stupid? And that's one of my biggest fears, is looking foolish in front of others. So it's easy for me to be in situations where the outcome is predictable. But you know what happens when the outcome is predictable all the time? It's boring. and there's no growth or very little growth. And so the goal is to change up the recipe. Now, you don't have to go crazy and change everything all at once. That might be too much for some people. That's too much for me. But there is something about demonstrating how we want to show up. So here's an example of what I mean by that. By the way, welcome to... I just jumped right in, right? Welcome to Seared, Stories from the Stove podcast. My name is Paul Silva. As always, welcome. Thank you for being here. I remember when I was a young cook, and I may have shared this before, I was working the same station. I was like on the salad station or something, and I'm like, went to the chef and I was chirping about like, I want to get I'm bored. Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, show me that you want to change. Show me. I don't know. I can't read your mind. And he suggested that when the guy on the station next to me, when he went for a smoke break or when he jump in, ask him questions throughout the day, learn something, learn how to make a pizza, learn how to make a pasta, do a staff pot, do something different, and show me that you're ready to do that. Demonstrate to me. And I took those words to heart, and I started doing that, and I applied that at different areas, different restaurants, and I quickly moved up because they saw that I was not content with the same old. And it's powerful, right? Because in the same way that, and cooks have asked me the same thing, and I tell them the same thing. It's like, well, show me. Like, I can't read your mind. So I was borrowing my old chef's words to me. In the same way, the universe is the same way. I can think, oh man, I wish things were different. But if I'm doing the same thing every single day, well, guess what? The universe is like, well, looks like you're okay with that. It looks like you're okay with just doing the same old, because that's what you're doing. And so why would the universe give you something if it doesn't see or feel that you want it, right? Like the universe meets you halfway. That's what I always feel. It meets you halfway. You take a step, it opens up a window. You take another step, it shows another path. You take yet another step, you bump into someone or you get an email out of the blue with an opportunity, whatever it is. And this is whether it's work, career, romance, friendship, hobbies, money, entrepreneurship, whatever it is. Unless you make the first step and step into that discomfort. And that's where I'm at right now. So I'm not telling you anything that I am not doing myself. And it's scary. Oh, it's scary, all right. And, this is something that I've been thinking about lately as we've gone into this new year. And I'm not a new year, new me person. I'm not. I believe we all have our cycles and seasons. And, for some people, this is still, it's winter. For some people, this truly is still their winter. Things are percolating, they're resting, they're recouping. There's stuff happening under the surface. For some of you, this is your autumn. This is where you're harvesting. For other people, this is their spring, maybe, where like little things are starting to bud, little growths happening. But I've been thinking about like, what do I want? Because the last 2 years have felt very cocoon-like, very floaty, as I was explaining to my wife and to some friends. It feels like this was a floaty last 2 or maybe even 3 years, where I'm just kind of like, I don't know, and just jumping from one thing and just kind of half-heartedly doing things. And I've come to this realization that I don't want any more floaty years. I want directive. I want really not intense, but I want change, and I'm going to create change. And the only way I can do it is by actually doing it and inviting it and being happy to receive it. And once you can do that, like it's making the decision to be willing to receive it. If you're not willing to receive it, if you're not willing to do it, then it's just words floating in the air. And my wife sent me a video from Jesse Itzler. He's one of these guys. He's done everything, ultra marathons, this, that, like one of those guys, like very, very powerful, not powerful, but he just grabs life by the lapels, roughs it up and gets right in there. And what he shared was really interesting, and I'm going to share with you. And I can put the link to his interview in this podcast. And he had three things. I'm trying to remember them all. One thing he said is having an event, like a goal, like a year defining goal. For some it could be running a marathon. For some it could be, like, for me it's writing a book, which I'm doing. For others it could be a certain trip. And it doesn't have to be something expensive. It could be like losing 10 pounds. And so it's having that, like, when a year from now and your bestie or your spouse, someone asks you, hey, how was 2025? You say, oh my God, I can't believe, like, this year I hiked the mountains of Europe, I hiked the Alps. Wow. I did a talk in front of a group of people. Whoa. I lost 15 pounds. Oh my gosh. And just having something. So for me, it's a book. I'm also going to be, speaking of hiking, mountains, my oldest and I are going to, today we were just looking at planning a July, like a graduation trip for him. It's just going to be him and I for 2 weeks, and we've never really traveled together and hiking. He loves adventures and hiking. So that's going to be another one. So just having something that you can kind of look forward to. And you don't have to have it right now. You don't have to know it right now. I would invite you to watch that podcast. It's fantastic. The other thing he talks about is having small adventures. So every 2 weeks, doing something different. Like, it could be stepping out, maybe going camping, or it could be going, I don't know, jet skiing, or it could be going to a poetry, word slam, poetry slam. It could be like something different, like little mini adventures. And it doesn't have to be outdoors. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Just something to shake you out. So when you look back in the year, like, yeah, we had our big thing, but then we had all these really cool things that we did. Like, our family went to see a Toronto Raptors game. We had never been to a game like together like that. It was awesome. We really enjoyed it. And so that was an example of, like, a little mini adventure. Checking this out, checking that out. Maybe it's going rock climbing. Maybe it's whatever. You can plan something with your family or your partner, your friends, or taking yourself on creative dates. Julia Cameron talks about that in The Way of the Artist. She talks a lot about that. So having the small adventures. And then he also talks about just changing your habits, right? Like making one small change. And I think a lot of us, and myself included, think we have to have these massive changes, like these fantastical, over-the-top, like just wholesale changes. And they don't have to be, and they often aren't. I mean, they start with small things. And so what little changes is it waking up 15 minutes earlier, for the next month? Is it starting your day with a 1-minute meditation? Is it taking 1,000 steps extra in the day? And then just building on that. And I know for me, that's really helped me. Like, for me, it's like this past year, I've released about 35, 40 pounds. And I want to release another 10. So that's going to be part of my goals. And, you want to look back and just think, man, I made some great changes. I did some really cool things. And not to impress anyone, but just so that for yourself, it's changing the recipe. It's changing the mix-up. It's changing things so that it just invigorates you. And this doesn't have to be a New Year's Eve, a New Year's thing. You can do this anytime, but as of this recording, it's Jan 3rd. And there's still plenty of time. Again, there's no pressure. But do you just still want to keep making the same chicken cacciatore? Or do you want to change it up? And there's nothing wrong with chicken cacciatore. I just think of what lights me up. What's the thing that lights you up? What gets your, lately I've been getting into photography. And I have been. I took photography in college, and this was like many years ago. There was no digital. It was all film, and you had to develop everything with chemicals in the darkroom and all that. And it was fascinating, and I loved it. But I stopped after I started getting into cooking. A lot of things I stopped. And the last couple of years, I've been slowly playing with it, and I've just decided now that I really want to step into it. So I'm learning more, and I'm learning to edit and doing stuff in RAW, and like just really stepping into it. I'm gonna, buy another camera and study, and maybe take a course or get one-on-one with someone, and getting out there and maybe joining a club, which are all scary for me because I'm someone who likes to be in control and wants to be the smart one and all that. I'm coming with a beginner's mindset and being okay with my shots looking terrible, and many of them do. But I'm okay with that because it's a process and it lights me up. And you know why? How I know it lights me up is like just today I'm under the weather, like I said. I still got my tennis elbow. It hurts. My legs are sore. I went to the gym, biking. It's cold out. It was snowing. I just didn't feel like being out. And I took my son out. He had to get something done in government office. We went for a quick lunch. And he took the subway back, and I had my camera with me. And I said, okay, I'll see you at home. I'm going to walk home and maybe take some shots. And amidst all those things that were going on with me, as I was taking photos, I realized that all of that went away. The cold, the discomfort, my legs, like the sore, all of that just dissolved as I'm taking photos. Am I going to win Nobel Prize, Pulitzer Prizes for this? No. But it was just a process, and I just realized this. I could spend the whole day outside and into dusk and get those beautiful shots, and I love it. And so there's something that we all have, and maybe it's a few things that just lights us up. And I invite you, what is it that lights you up? What are you sitting on? Maybe it's something that you think, maybe I was doing that in school or even as a kid. Like another one of my goals is like to compose music. I don't know the first thing about music theory. Maybe a little thing. I can't play the piano. But I'd love to compose. And, that's something I will probably have to learn. But it calls to me. It lights me up. I love listening to music from the position of like a composer. Like, how come they have the oboes coming in now? Like, how come, and the synth, how come, this is really cool. How many layers are there? How did they produce this? Same with photography. I'm like, oh my God, how did they structure this? How did they frame this? Anyway, you have a thing that lights you up, and maybe it's been so dim that it doesn't feel like it, but there's something that lights you up. And I invite you, if you're thinking about how to change the recipe, how to change the mix, what are the things that lit you up maybe in the past? Because I guarantee that there's something that still taps on your shoulder and says, hey, what about me? Don't forget about me. It could be writing. It could be some sort of craft. Maybe it's building things. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I invite you to tap into it and think about it and play around. And once you start doing that, you can start thinking about, what do you want for this year? What are the little adventures? Like, just have fun with it. And you can start shifting the habits, and maybe you start playing the piano for 2 hours a week or 1 hour a week. Maybe you go walk around, and I don't know. But I know for myself that is where I need to be this year. Because floating for the last 2 years has been good in some way, but not great overall. Because now, what's been great is now I realize that I've been lacking those things that light me up, and I've been lacking that. And if you feel like you are kind of blah, if you feel like you're meh, it's maybe because you're not inviting the light into what brings you joy. Right? Too much chicken cacciatore could get boring. But shift things around, change it up, see how it fits. Try something new. You don't have to do it forever. Maybe you try it, it's not for you, you move on. But it's in the trying that the growth happens. And I need to hear that for myself. So with that, I will leave you because my nose is running. I can't do this. Can't hold back anymore. If you haven't seen, I do some readings, some tarot, and some other things like that. If you want to check out maybe some messages you might need for 2025, maybe your spirit guides can give you a little nudge, and I'm here to help you with that. You can check out the links and book live or remote sessions. Also, if you're looking to get some coaching around creativity or just life issues in general, if you're feeling stuck, check out my website, and I have all my packages and plans there to help you shift and get into the creative and emotional space where you can play and just really show up fully for this 2025. And that's all I got, my friend. Thank you for being here as usual. Kitchen's closed. Now scram.